and it's usually a bit of a pejorative, and in some ways it really is. The word is flakes. People who are flakes. People who have very little substance. People who blow one way or the other, depending upon circumstances. Sort of like snowflakes in the most beautiful version of flakes, and flakes of cereal that just fall outside the bowl and go in the garbage. Flakes that melt. And there's something you can also call spiritual flakes. And I certainly have met many over the course of years. It has to do with you can call it a lightness of being if you want, which is in some ways desirable. But in many ways, it's with a lack of rootedness, a lack of depth, a lack of connection, blowing whichever way the wind blows, finding their journey basically determined by the winds of, you can't even call it fortune, just the winds. And it's hard to fight against that. It's hard to find solid ground. It's hard to find a place where you can land and in some ways dig into the soil and hold on. Root yourself into something that can expand into the depth of the world you're in and reach high into the heavens above you. But the imagery of trees, the imagery of something that can withstand the winds and the torrential rains of the world is somehow a good descriptor for the spiritual space that man is trying to inhabit. There is something exquisite about the ability to withstand whatever the world throws at you. And of course, in the end, something will get us all, because the world does not offer permanence, but it does offer a kind of long period of stability, a long period of flourishing, evolving, reaching high into the heavens above us, reaching deep into the world around us, and forming these extraordinary connections, extraordinary in their ability to touch so much. We don't look at root systems very often in trees because they're invisible, but they have to do with moving through the soil, touching life, touching creatures, touching other plants, sharing, nurturing, communicating. The life of trees, and there are whole books written about it, are lives of vast communication systems that we know nothing about because we see the part protruding through the earth into the heavens and reaching a particular kind of mass. And even that mass, in a sense, is sensitive to light, it is sensitive to air, it is sensitive to rain, it is sensitive even to emotional being, although most of us think of that as woo-woo. There is a very real sense of these living creatures, living beings, reaching out in vast ways, interconnected ways, and touching the soil, touching the ants that crawl over them, the beetles that dig through their roots, the things that pave room for them, the movement they make for other beings and creatures, the kind of subtle connection one tree makes with another tree, with a blade of grass, with the universe around it. It is so powerful. And in a way, it's such a wonderful descriptor of something that has solidity, weight, and mass, as opposed to being a flake. A flake just moves around whichever way the wind blows, ultimately has limited durability, and at some point just breaks into smaller flakes until they just become part of the earth itself, broken down into nothingness, and then perhaps allow the world to regenerate in the molecularity that they leave behind. But there's an enormous opportunity in human experience to become substantial, to move the earth, to move the heavens, to make things, to build things, to create, to procreate, to give life, to share itself with others, to give a kind of acknowledgement, compassion, love, connection to one other, to multiples of others, to millions of people through whatever mechanism you have to really expand and grow and offer your being to the shared community that we are. And not to be part of that shared community, to be simply floating around worrying and wondering about your own well-being is a small, flaky life. It's not wrong. There are a lot of people who are born into circumstances that really are full of pain and dislocation and suffering and difficulty. And in a way, it's for the rest of us to envelop people who have found themselves in those circumstances and give them comfort, to give them nourishment, to give them acknowledgement, to give them help in some way. Take people into your lives. Find the people around you who need something. They don't have to be tragic circumstance. They can just be people who need somebody to call them and say hello. We can do that. Substantial beings have the ability to nurture, to give, to help, to guide, to encompass, to serve other people. And it really begins with serving those around you. The mandala always starts at the core. The person you're closest to, and then the people who are peripheral to that, and then it reaches out, and it reaches out, and it reaches out. And it can become a vast network of kindness and goodness, something that gives substance to you, substance to your life, substance to your daily existence, as opposed to me, mine, period. I meet so many people who wallow in their flakiness, who sit around and complain about all of the things that were done wrong to them, all of the problems they have, all of the difficulties. And yes, your heart can go out to them, but you also see they have never, ever taken responsibility to reach out, to begin to set roots down, to begin to actually maybe care about another person more than themselves. They really have found a way to enhance their flaky nature. It's deeply unattractive. And it's especially unattractive for me in people in the spiritual universe who are claiming to be on a path toward everything we're talking about, but who don't set roots, who don't particularly do for others, who walk around with a smile that basically says, look how good I am, who find their own kind of smug satisfaction in their particular journey, but never really demonstrate a kind of connective tissue with the world around them. And for me, it's very hard to embrace that. Spiritual evolution is growing. It's not staying in the same place. It's not being smug in your achievement. It's reaching out and becoming something bigger and more without ever knowing really what that will be, what it can be, what it should be, just reaching. You don't have to reach blindly. There are always people and situations around you that need you. There are always things around you that need you. if you are blind to that, that's your choice. You know, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that. You kind of pull yourself into the world you can manage. And sometimes, specifically in the period we're living right now, the world around us is becoming so dense, so dramatic, so hyper present in its drama and diversion that a lot of people are kind of pulling away from themselves, from the world. They're hiding in this kind of quietude of me and mine, and not really embracing the other. I had lunch with someone yesterday, and the ground rule is we couldn't talk about the world, the political world, or also the physical world, the fact that it's been hot for God knows how long, and whatever that may imply, which in my mind is big. But we just take that out of the equation. And so there was a healthy element to that, and also a kind of denial in that. Because not that we can solve the problems of the world, not that we have the tools or the capacity to even know what's to be done, but we do know what we can do, and that is reach across the table, hold hands, acknowledge at least that life at this moment in time is becoming a very outer-driven, outer-consuming experience, and we need to find our way in, but not to disavow and not to become impervious to what's going on around us. How do you find the inner strength to balance the world that is so in our face with the universe that we are? And there's only one way to do that, and that is to have a discipline and a practice that allows you to dig deep into the roots that will allow you to support yourself when all of this difficulty around you is manifesting in such big ways. We have had to trim back some of our biggest trees here because they cannot sustain themselves in the drought. Their outer branches are dying away, and so we're cutting them off so that they can survive with the nurturing of what is. But what I'm seeing happen is so beautiful because they are finding just enough energy to produce new shoots, new life. They are, in their cut back form, reviving. Sometimes we have to cut ourselves back. We have to slow down. We have to know what it is we're capable of and find the root system deep enough in the world, interconnected with all the nourishment that's around us, going deep for the liquids that we need, for the water, for the juice, for the dynamic that keeps us alive. We need to go deep. If it's not coming from outside, if it's warming up too much, if it's too hot and difficult in the outer, you have to go into the inner. If you don't have a root system and you don't have a practice that digs deep, you're going to wither, and no amount of pruning will help you. If ever there was a time to not be a flake, if ever there was a time to find substance, to find rootedness, to find density, to find a far-reaching root system that connects with others and that holds on to all of the power that we give each other, if ever there was a time for that, this is that time. The outer world is being challenged in many, many ways. And I'm telling you, if you just walk outside in Los Angeles in the middle of the day, you will feel the challenge. In the perfect world, we all help each other through our day-to-day life. We water each other, we nurture each other, we care about each other, we touch each other in subtle ways. You can do it outwardly, reaching out and literally going out for lunch and talking or whatever those things are, going to the movies. But the real connection is loving one another way below the surface and extending that reach into the world around you so that everyone around you feels it. Plants do it through these tiny little tendrils that just communicate, I'm here. Just this little thing. And you go, it's beautiful. Human beings do it with, I guess, Facebook, which I'm not on, Instagram, which I am, email, a phone call, sending love into the ether even. Whatever it is, you put this stuff out there, and we human beings are enriched by it. We're ennobled by it. We are thriving because of it. It's when we disconnect from each other, when all we're thinking about is our flaky nature, that the world falls apart. We need to find a way to connect. We need to find a way to nurture and support and touch and love and be present for one another. In that, our tiny little substance becomes magnified. We become vast with connectivity. We become vast with support. We take in the people who are hurting. We reach out to people who need us. We do the thing that needs to be done to support the world around us. You don't always know what it is, but you ask for help and you see what it is. You know, I've spoken pretty much weekly now about the pain I experienced with the separation of children and parents at the border and trying to figure out what to do. And those of you who are listening to these talks, you know that I just said, I don't know what to do, but I'm going to just start talking about it. And I did. And the next thing that happened is there were more people, and I was led into, you know, making a movie, a commercial that could be used for, you know, changing the world on some level, getting people to go out and vote, getting people to care about a larger situation. There was nothing comfortable about doing this, nothing easy, financially demanding, painful on so many levels. And yet, I knew that I needed to expand my comfort zone and to do something that would be of service to something larger. I didn't know if it would work. I still don't know if it'll work, but it's shot. The film is shot, it's being edited. With luck, we'll get it out to the people who need to vote in this next election, which is all of us, as a reminder or an inducement into feeling something that will get you to the polls. I think there's something about that that really is interesting to me. It's kind of subterranean, but it was so interesting to me because there was something in me that could have just said, no, too much work, I don't have time, I don't want to do it. But instead of that, there was just something that went, okay. And it was graced in a way. Grace came in and it served it, not made it easy. I talked about this last week. It was filled with obstacles, but it happened. It happened. And it happened because the root system said to itself, this tree is going to die in the heat, and it needs to get more nourishment at a deeper level, and it's got to grow. And so that growth took place underground. It's invisible, mostly. But it took place, and I could feel it touching so many people that I never would have touched before. The roots of so many other people came into the structure, and we all got nurtured. We all got touched. And I mean, you guys, I think you know this touching, and I do it a lot, but touching is so powerful. Touching one another is so powerful. Touching the self is so powerful. It's why we're born. The biology of human being is this experience of touching the self and touching other. And if you can't do it outwardly, do it inwardly. Go into the roots. Make a phone call. Write an email. Tell somebody you love them. Simple, simple stuff, and it keeps the roots growing. And if the plant isn't thriving externally, the root systems will be ready for any beneficial outside event that could occur, like a rainstorm, a cool night. We are in very challenging times. We need one another. We need strong plants. If you are a flake in your spiritual life, in your daily life, in your human experience, let yourself drop to the ground and find, if you can, a tendril that can just begin to drill down a little bit into your inner life, into your spiritual practice, and find the beginning of real substance. And when you find real substance, something will happen that will make all of this worth it, worth the while. It can only be inspired by others. It cannot be made to happen by others. Nobody can do it for you. Nobody. If you're a flake, recognize you're a flake and choose to become something more. Or just be a happy flake and move around because, you know, if you get a little sugar coating, the world enjoys you. And, you know, but do the best you can with what you're given, because there's a challenging environment that we are all in right now. And those of us who grow strong will serve one another. And those of us who don't do that will be challenged in a very bad way. So look into yourself, feel who and what you are, and then know that if you can get into this navel chakra reconstructive empowerment that exists there, you can build a new person and you can build a new world that flows from that. So I really wish you all well on this journey, and the more you show up here, the more, in a way, the opportunity provides itself to get that inspiration and to get that motivation. But in the end, once you walk out the door, there's nothing I can do. You got to do it. Any thoughts or comments? Okey-doke. Thank you. Blanche and I are traveling in August, and we'll be in Big Indian in the middle of August, and we won't be back here until the end of September, but classes will continue, and please make yourselves available and come and support the teacher. I think I've said this to you before, the more teachers you work with, the more you understand and develop your own mechanism. Learning to open to other human beings in different ways is a great test, because you get to do it every day in the world, and the more you can open deeply to a teacher, the more you'll be able to open deeply to other people, and that will really serve you in your life. So take advantage. Thank you guys. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you in September.